Good afternoon. Chris Wallace here, advisor to men. I've been around for about 30 years and I teach men how to discover their power, to claim it and use it in service of themselves and others to find meaning and freedom. I run group masterminds called the Board of Directors and a couple of online groups such as the Men of Honor and Nice Guys Unite. You can find us under No More Mr. Nice Guys on Facebook. You can find me at advisortomen.com where I do free discovery calls. Sometimes I agree to work with people. Here's the thing I want to talk to you about today. Feelings. It's a hot topic. You know, I hear it all the time. Nice guys repress their feelings. Nice guys tend to analyze rather than feel. Men just don't express their feelings, right? Sure we do. It's just that we do it differently. And it's important that we don't fall into the feminization of the culture. Hell, on this one, just about every man I know fits the bill to some degree. And it's unsurprising because most of them have a tinge of nice guy in them at least. Not all, but most. Others have more, much, much more. And why is this? Well, we all had mothers and we're trained from little boys to please mommy right from the outset. And this kept you alive. It's well-intentioned and it's a necessary fact of life. However, you're a man now. Back in the old days, men would have taught you about these things. There's less of that now. So let me try to be helpful. Men don't become men until they reverse the flow. What do I mean by that? It's that they no longer expect love at all, but rather they realize that they hold reserves of love and power inside them. Force is something else. And they use that love and power in service of themselves and others to find meaning and freedom. The only person upon whom you can reliably count on with any confidence for unconditional love is you. It could be that if a man has a problem giving love, it's only because he secretly demands love, like a little boy still looking for mommy's attention. Well, that's totally understandable in a child. In a man, in a grown man, it's intolerable. So listen, let me start this by saying it's probably useful to examine how men tend to use their emotions and what that means. Let me start with some basics from Lisa Feldman Barrett about constructed emotion. Your brain doesn't operate reactively, but rather it's a beautifully built organic prediction machine. It's all predictive, everything. In any situation, your brain is calculating what is the best state to put you in to meet the challenges before you. And it's all done well beneath your awareness, and it's based on your history. Like, just think about that for a second. What else would the brain have to go on but your history? It doesn't have that other person's history or that other person's history to go on. It has your background, your experiences. That's the first point. So we live emotionally because emotions report to the brain the fastest through the nervous system to keep us alive. And afterwards, we use our brain and language to rationalize things with our personal bias firmly in place. We tend to take our own side. Trauma specialist Peter Levine says thoughts are more a reflection of the brain-body state. That makes a lot of sense. And that's why you can be cranky and say mean things when you're hungry. It's the body. It's why you might give a short answer to someone about a subject that you can use a much more detailed reply because you have to go take a piss and you're just too much of a nice guy to interrupt and say, excuse me for a few minutes. It's the body. Or maybe you toss off an answer while you're tired because you're up playing COD last night. Today, you're just dragging your ass, or maybe you're hungover. It's the body. Or maybe it's just that you're still a little rattled by that work meeting yesterday that didn't go so well. It's the body. Or the tiff you had with your gal this morning. Maybe that's still sitting in your belly. Again, it's the body. So this becomes your first link in your chain of being, the body. And that's what's reporting back and forth to the brain through the vagus nerves and the central nervous system in constant communication. The brain still runs things, but messaging from the body is constantly ongoing, back and forth between the brain. And so the brain then organizes accordingly. Mike Gazzaniga, one of the top neuroscientists of the last 50 years, says consciousness is slow. He says that once something makes it into your awareness, it's usually already happened. And it's only with awareness that free will begins. Agency starts at consciousness. Once you're aware, you're responsible fully. You're always responsible, but now you're doubly responsible because now you can do something about it because you have awareness. So your system operates like this: body, brain, affect, feelings, thoughts, and then you correct after the fact based on the social reality before you. So let's talk about affect, because this is the way out of this. Affect is kind of like the body brain state of the overall system. It's like your mood, and it has two kinds: valence and arousal. Valence is it's very simple. Valence is comfortable or uncomfortable. Arousal is you're either up or you're relaxed. So even if you just try to pinpoint and express just your affect for now, you'll get better at sensing and expressing your feelings. That's a clue about how we should start. Affect: comfort or discomfort, relaxed or aroused. If the brain uses your history too, now this is another important point. The brain uses your history to make its predictions. That means feelings are based on your data bank of prior experience since birth. And I'll tell you why that's important, because it means if you feel something today, you've felt it before. That's how it works. The brain uses your prior experiences to predict going forward. So if you're triggered uncomfortably by something in the present, it's a younger version of you making an appearance, whether it be from yesterday, last week, a month ago, 10 years ago, or 30 years ago. That's why it's so important to do something like the shame course that I offer and make peace with old memories by bringing them out, learning lessons from those experiences, and then putting them back with a new perspective, gaining an ennobling gratitude from having lived through whatever it was. Otherwise, we're forever more open to be hooked by our past, broadsided in daylight by our old selves. You don't want to operate like that. Pain teaches us, my friend. That's how it works. It's not to be avoided. We don't want to embrace pain, but we don't want to avoid it. Now, how much emotion should a man express? Well, I'm not a fan of the whole feminization of the culture where men ought to express themselves the same way women do. We're just not the same. And I realize that men have buried how they feel, like they always have, and that culture has changed, so we'd have less of an outlet amongst ourselves as men to express ourselves. But here's the thing: men in general tend to repress emotion for good goddamn reason. It's a sex difference that shows up early in life. Joyce Benenson at Harvard has studied this. You crash a tray of dishes in a nursery and all the babies will stare. Boys will look away first. Our physiology is not as affected as it is with girls. And it's a good thing too. Men operate in much bigger groups where vulnerability is riskier. And it is men who defend families, communities, and nations. We also do the most dangerous jobs. Whereas women, on the other hand, tend to prefer smaller groups and stick to one or two friends. And so expressing feelings is a far safer interpersonal gambit. Women are the world's caregivers, a pretty darn important role. Nothing replaces mom in a child's life. So we're not going to take anything away from that. But little boys in the playground will often push each other. And it's thought that they do this to see who is a girl and who is a boy. And it's as though boys know they are born to grow up and fight the enemies. Look at any 5 or 6 or 7-year-old kid. I have a 7-year-old boy, and I raised another to adulthood already. My little boy is a cape-wearing destroyer of evil. My little girl, no such tendency. My little boy instinctively wants to know if you're the type to stand shoulder to shoulder with him and fight the enemies. It's in him. You see it right away. Imagine on the battlefield fighting the bad guys, and the fella next to you, your best pal in the platoon, takes one in the forehead and drops dead. Not a great outcome. But if you can't stuff your feelings and move fast in that situation, you are just as dead as he is in seconds. That's reality. Men need to be able to hold feelings in. That's unlikely to ever change. That said, it reminds me of the French maxim, and it comes into play here like it does with everything. It goes like this: On a tous les défauts de nos qualités, which means we all have the faults of our qualities. We pay a price for our ability to stuff our feelings, and it's worth being aware of this cost. Hiding feelings is common. And here's a really common way that we do it: intellectualizing. It signals to other people a lack of congruency. People realize that when you use words with no feeling, or you act super reasonable and you reveal little of yourselves, it sets them off. That defense mechanism, intellectualization, is often mistaken for intelligence, and it's nothing of the sort. It's a person who uses minute details, lengthy descriptions, all kinds of jargon, and they may even cling precariously to being right, which could just be shame speaking. People can spot that bullshit. They just get an uncomfortable feeling from such a person. And it signals to them, I'm untouchable. That's how smart I am. And sure enough, they remain disconnected from others. Untouchable indeed. That's not what you want. Each of us has to find a balance between honoring his natural stoicism, call it, and accessing his feelings. Why? So that he knows what he values, and so that he knows what he wants. Critical for a man. To that end, one guy has no idea how he feels. Another guy has only a few very basic kind of good, bad grasp on how he feels. Maybe a level up from that is another fella who uses a few more feeling words rather than just the broad strokes of good and bad. And then all the way to a man who can say with precision how he feels, possessing an expanded vocabulary, and he can let himself and others know exactly where he's coming from. People appreciate that. After all, people aren't going to read your mind. Please. Know anybody like that? It's fucking annoying. Okay. A good way to start this practice is to begin with affect, valence in particular. It's what helped me way back when I struggled with this, and it's what I often fall back on still if I'm not sure. Am I comfortable or am I uncomfortable? Ask that simple question. Once you've asked that, say, good, now state it. I'm comfortable with that. Thank you. Or that makes me a little uncomfortable if it's called for. Say which one, comfortable or uncomfortable, and you might need the practice. On the other hand, you could also use arousal. Not that kind. It's your mind out of the gutter. In the right circumstances, telling your woman what she's saying or doing makes your dick hard is fine. However, in everyday context, you might just say, now you're getting me interested. Telling people. You're sending them a message of how they're impacting you. Or, sorry, man, you're losing me with this one. To let people know their impact on you, that's not going to keep your interest. Again, practice that, valence and arousal. I'll give you an example. Of a few days ago, I wrote a post called You and I mentioned to my missus that I was not comfortable discussing my boy's medical conditions in front of him. Nothing to do with her. It's my comfort. So I told her, I'm not comfortable with that. She accepted it easily. I could have labeled my feelings differently, but in that on-the-spot context, reporting my affect was the easiest for me. Just report your affect to people. Tell them your mood. Become kind of like notice that about yourself, a watcher. Your affect determines your reality, probably through the neurotransmitter dopamine. Your mood will filter out your sensory input information to fit its valence and arousal, to help you ignore the other stimuli around you. Okay. An integrated man can use this knowledge to possibly spot his blind spots. You can say, well, this is the mood I was in, so I may have missed that because of this. You just simply can't take in all the information available in your environment. It's too much. So keep in mind, you're constantly filtering out information to fit your mood, your affect. So you might miss something. Remember that. From reporting your affect to others, even if it's just to yourself, you can slowly get in the habit of nailing down how you feel. Comfortable, uncomfortable, relaxed, aroused. Just remember those four for now. In time, as you practice, you may develop something called granularity. Some people use a feelings wheel for this. I don't know if you got to go that far, but that's just where you're a pro at finding just the right words to express your feelings in a more complex and complete, with a deck of emotional expressions. And these high granularity fuckers, well, when you know it, they get sick less often. probably live longer. Who would have thunk it? Another benefit of expressing how you feel is that you're letting yourself know that you're in keeping with your values and your goals and your identity. This fits with me. That's critical to staying on mission, something every man needs. And it's all the while you're signaling to others where you stand. That lets them know where you are. This builds trust and connection with yourself and with others. And a man who uses his power in service of himself and others finds meaning and freedom. So, to create new feelings, live new experiences. That's how it works because it's based on your data bank of prior history. It's by accepting responsibility for how we feel and learning to express ourselves that we do things differently and create new experiences. This gives the brain new data to use going forward, making you more resilient, more flexible, making you more integrated. You're not missing parts of yourself. So my advice is to start with the habit of describing how you feel in the simplest terms. Affect. This will train your brain to come up with a better prediction in the future. Chris Wallace, Advisor to Men. Thanks for listening. You can find me at advisortomen.com and join our board of directors masterminds. The men tell me it's the best deal on the internet. And that's where you join. We're like-minded men and share your mission with others who can support you and hold you accountable. Who knows? The internet could save us men yet. I'll link the group in the comments. Meanwhile, stay powerful. Never give up. Remember, this is the day. Put your questions, remarks, or advice in the comments. Thanks very much.